Thank you very much for coming today to join our town hall meeting. This is our CACC first town hall meeting ever, and I wanted to say thank you very much for coming, and also feel I have never felt this safe ever.
Yeah.
Very secure. I understand that today's Saturday, and then you guys take time to come here and join us. We really appreciate it. And then we also wanted to feel all of the VIPs here today that we appreciate your support and your consideration, that you take our concerns very seriously, and really, we really appreciate it. Without further ado, I wanted to introduce our VIP speaker today. Laura, are you ready?
Oh, I'm a VIP speaker today? Wow.
I wanted to tell you that thanks to Laura Sturgeon, our state senator's suggestion, so we're having the town hall meeting today. So you want to say something?
Sure. Well, I'm very happy to be here, but I'm not happy that I'm here under these circumstances. Very sorry to hear about what's happening to AAPI community, in particular the Chinese American community. And I'm eager to learn alongside you from our law enforcement what we can do to try to help ourselves be safe, how we as elected officials can help us stay safe, how we can support law enforcement, since they are really the ones on the front lines trying to tackle this increase in crime targeting your community. So I'm just grateful that we were able to pull it together so quickly and get so many members of our law enforcement community here. I see your county council person, Janet Kilpatrick, is here. And are Mike Romano and Mike Smith able to come today?
They're coming, but they're late.
Okay, so you will also have a chance to meet your local state representatives, Mike Smith and Mike Romano, who will be coming soon. But I'm Laura Sturgeon, your state senator for this area and for all of Hockessin and Greenville and Centerville and parts of Pike Creek and North Newark. So afterwards, if you want to meet, I have my cards and we can talk more. But mostly I'm here to see how I can help you feel safe in your communities. Thank you.
And next we have our Newcastle County Councilwoman, Janet Kilpatrick. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm really going to just say ditto to what Laura said. I think we all feel the same, that we are happy to participate no matter what day of the week it is, but we are sorry that we're participating in something like this. I want to thank Newcastle County Police for coming out, as well as the state police. In residential areas, the jurisdiction is for Newcastle County Police. For schools, numbered roads, shopping centers, the jurisdiction is pretty much for state police, and our two entities do work together very, very well. So hoping to get this started and learn something.
I have Colonel Jamie.
Not yet. Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Leonard. I'm the legislative liaison for the Newcastle County Police. I just want to introduce our contingent that we brought with us that are more or less the subject matter experts and are going to be presenting to you all today. Lieutenant Seth Polk is the lieutenant in charge of the criminal investigations unit, the detective section that is responsible for investigating these burglaries. Sergeant Kevon Cumberbatch is the supervisor of the community services unit. And Master Corporal Sonny Allen, who is the community officer assigned to this neighborhood. So I'm going to turn it over to Captain Lloyd so he can introduce his crew. I think what our general flow, I think, is that Corporal Allen is going to give you all a presentation with regards to some prevention tips, some burglary prevention tips, just some, how to safeguard your home, etc. Detective Arnold, there he is, sorry I missed him. He is also has a small presentation I think is very focused on what brings us here today, which is the numbers, community numbers, kind of where we are with some of the burglary trends that we're seeing. So all of us will be available for questions after, but I think that's probably the best flow at this point in time. Does that work for you, man?
Yeah, sure. And also, I was wondering if you guys can kind enough to send us the PowerPoint presentation so we can make some translation and send it to our member in case they don't understand English.
You guys go there, right? You can forward along?
Thank
Yep,
you.
we'll get it to you.
Thank you.
All right, sir.
Afternoon, I'm Jeremiah Lloyd, I'm the troop commander of Troop 6, which was originally located at Price's Corner. We're temporarily located down at Troop 2 while we go through our reconstruction phase. We have with us here today Captain Jonathan Packard, he commands Troop 1, and Lieutenant Scott Weaver, who leads our criminal investigations unit for all of Newcastle County. And as the county council person said, we work collaboratively with the county police on all levels of crime. So we're looking forward to hearing from you, and we're here to support the efforts to target harden your businesses and residences. I already switched to it.
Okay, so Sunny, are you ready? Sure.
Hello, my name is Corporal Sunny Allen. I am the Community Service Officer for this area, the area of CACCDCAATownHallwPolice20230722full2. Today I have a brief, I'm trying to keep it brief, presentation on burglary prevention, home safety, just some general tips. And I also want to talk a little bit about how and when you report things to the police, because it is important. This is a very informal presentation, so if you have questions, I don't mind if you ask questions during the presentation. It just helps me, guides me to what you want to hear more about versus what I can kind of just go over. Okay? I'm awful at technology as well. Okay, so this graphic right here is the crime triangle. It's just something that we use to describe the elements of crime. As you can see, there are 3 elements. You need the belief, the desire, and the opportunity. If you notice, the only thing that you have control over as a homeowner or a potential victim would be what? The opportunity, right? So if somebody really wanted to commit a crime, you really can't control their belief or desire. You can only control the opportunity. An example, a very common example that I like to give would be, it's one that we see a lot as Newcastle County officers, when people decide, okay, I want to steal something, they pick a neighborhood, they pick a street, and they just kind of go down the street late at night and check door handles. Well, if your car is locked, they're just going to move on to the next car, okay? So opportunity, you can control the opportunity. Also, if there's no valuables in your car, that's even great. That's an extra added step. So just keep that in mind. All right, so conduct your own threat assessment at your home. Construct the planning stage. And what we mean by that is avoid predictability and simulate occupancy. So avoid predictability means if you take the same route home, especially if you're a business owner, you take the same route home every single time, try and take different routes. Try and mix it up a little bit. Try and use different times if you can. Rotate how and where vehicles are parked. So like if you're a person that lives home by yourself, you know, just, or if you know you're not going to be there for a long period of time, maybe a neighbor could park your car in different locations just to make it seem like someone's there and your house isn't sitting in the dark for a long period of time. Oh, sure. A little slower. So again, alternate a route to and from your own home. Just make it more difficult, you know, to where you're going. If possible, alter your times of departure and arrival. Employ the use of timers and motion sensors, and devise the illusion of occupancy. So some common techniques to look out for. A distraction burglary. Are you guys familiar with what a distraction burglary would be? So it would be somebody that would kind of knock on your front door and have maybe something to sell, or would pose as a bill collector. Just to kind of distract you while maybe somebody else tries to go into the garage or the back door. So someone that would be taking up your time and make you like not pay attention while they try and get into your home. Just be aware of those kind of distraction burglaries. Your home exterior, alternate lighting. Use timers. And also it's good to have your TV on a timer, just so that your TV goes on. Again, we just want you to make it look like there's somebody home at all times possible. Remove any items that could aid a burglar, such as keys hidden outside your home. Ladders, never keep a ladder outside your house. Make sure they're secured and inside your home. Also things like garbage cans that someone could use to stand on to maybe access a window. Just be mindful of those types of items. Home exterior, this is a big one. You get a nice TV, and you put that TV in the trash, everybody knows you have a nice TV now because there's the box right there. So just break that box down and put it inside the trash. Turn on lights at night and encourage your neighbors to do the same. I know there's all kinds of great LED light products that are on from dusk till dawn. Those are great to use. Home exterior. This is a big one. Prominently display your house number in plain view. As an emergency responder, this is big. If we see that we're going to your house, it's 2502, that's very clearly marked. I don't waste precious seconds trying to figure out if that's the right house. So if you ever have an emergency, this is just something really good to do. Make sure your house is clearly marked. It saves time and avoids us trying to look for the right house, make sure it's the right house. Install motion sensor lighting with timing options. These are great. I think you can even hook it up to your smartphone. Again, just make sure your house is well lit. And make sure you secure all entrances, including sheds and sliding glass doors. And it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can throw a piece of wood in a sliding glass door just to make it more secure. Home exterior, make sure you trim back landscaping, especially in the front of entrances and windows. If you have landscaping right here or in front of your door, that could possibly be concealment for a would-be burglar. They would basically just go unnoticed. They could tamper with the window or the door all they want. So just make sure that your shrubs and stuff are nice and trimmed back, and you can easily see them from the street. Install a monitored alarm system, or even if you don't want to do that, post signs in your yard. Would-be thieves and burglars don't know that. It's just a good prop to have. Your home exterior. Do not leave any revealing information on your answering machine, like, hey, we're not home right now, or, oh, we're on vacation. Don't say anything like that. If you are active on social media, try and refrain from posting vacation pictures if you're far away until you get back home. No one needs to know that you're away. So, good tip to know. Don't leave garage doors ajar when not in use. A peephole is great. Install basement window bar locks. Install sliding door bolt locks or arm bar locks. Any kind of extra lock on windows is great, especially for basement exits. Home exterior. Beware of the dog signs. Again, would-be thieves don't know that you don't have a dog, but it's just another thing that kind of makes them think. Okay. Stimulate deterrence. We have people that would put like large men's-sized boots outside a door. It doesn't matter that you're a single female that lives there. It's just a good prop to have, and they don't know that. Make sure you draw your windows and blinds after dark. You really just don't want people to be able to see you eating dinner or doing things inside your home. So it's always good to have blinds and close them at night. Don't allow newspapers, mail, or other debris to accumulate at your house. Nothing says I'm not home and haven't been home for a long time than a mailbox full of mail. And consider a house sitter or a neighbor to come over and watch your house. And like we said, move cars around, turn on lights for you, do things like that. For your home interior. If you are able to engrave valuables, great, do that. That's very helpful to recover property if it has been stolen. Record your serial numbers, that's very important. Photograph valuables, especially jewelry. I know that's very helpful to the police should something be stolen. Consider a safety deposit box. If you have to have a large amount of cash or valuables in your home, I would definitely invest in a good safe, one that bolts to the floor, okay? Lock all your guns away, and don't open the door to any unexpected visitors. Home exterior, again, all doors should be made of solid wood or metal. Deadbolts should have a minimum of a 1-inch throw. Purchase strike plates and reinforcement. They're pretty inexpensive and easy to install. Keep your cell phone charging right on your bedside table. It's just always good to have your cell phone nearby in case there is an emergency. I would go one step further than that and say it's also good practice to kind of keep your keys next to you. I know a lot of people who have said, oh, they either saw a commotion or heard a commotion in the middle of the night and they went ahead and clicked their alarm on their car, or just like, clicked it to lock their car door. Just that noise is helpful in scaring people off sometimes. Store your purse, wallet, and car keys next to your bedside as well. And there it is right there. The remote car alarm can be activated to distract or dissuade the burglar. And make sure you arm your security at night when you are not at home. That's really all I have for that. Now, I do want to talk about how you report things to 911 and to the police. So a lot of times I hear, we saw a suspicious person at 2 o'clock in the morning, or we saw a suspicious car idling on our street at 2 o'clock in the morning, and I didn't want to bother the police, so I'll wait to report it until the morning. Nope, we don't want you to do that. The time to report suspicious people and cars would be right then and there when it's happening. That way, if there's an officer in the area, you're at least giving us a chance to catch up to that person. To maybe we can stop them, and maybe we can figure out why they're there. It could be a harmless reason, or it might not be a harmless reason. Also, neighborhood next door and all these Facebook pages, they're great. That's not an official report to the police. If you want to report something to the police, either call 911 if it's appropriate, or use the non-emergency line. I have a bunch of pamphlets here that I'm going to pass out to everybody. It has that number on it for you, and it also has a recap of this presentation. So, any questions for me? Yes.
So you mentioned that we shouldn't open doors if we see like strangers, but
Yeah.
In the recent burglary thing, it seems that they were knocking on the doors, right?
Right.
So you still recommend that, we just don't answer?
If you are uncomfortable in any way, shape, or form, there is no reason for you to answer the door. Be rude. It's fine. Okay.
But are they, when you try to open the door, I mean?
No, I doubt that it would come to that. But again, that goes back to if you feel uncomfortable, if you think anything is suspicious in any way, shape, or form, you are not bothering us. Please, let us know. If someone's knocking at your door, you have no idea why they're there. If you feel the right call is to, report it to non-emergency, by all means, I'm telling you to do that. Okay? Better safe than sorry. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
As there are so many people have a glass door in the deck, so I think maybe it's not very safe, or we have a very big windows behind the house, so I
Yeah.
think maybe it's not very safe for this.
The only tip I can tell you to do that is there's certain kind of like film that you can use to put on the sliding glass door, either to make it a little bit more difficult to break. So maybe it would take them more time to break that window, and also they wouldn't be able to see in it. You know what I mean, with the film on it. So again, you can't prevent somebody if they really want to break into your house, but you can make it a lot more difficult. So maybe look into that. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I think I saw another hand. No? Okay. I'm going to stick around and I will take questions. And again, I'll make sure that everybody has one of these pamphlets before I leave. And I have extras. Yes. Go ahead.
Some of us have the security cameras. How helpful is that?
Oh, it's very helpful. Yeah, anytime that you capture pictures for us, it's definitely very helpful. And I know our detectives will talk a little bit more about that.
Sure.
So, okay. Go ahead.
How many of you guys have like Ring cameras or anything like that? Does anybody have Ring?
We have different types.
Okay, then do you have your alerts on for Ring? Like if you have a Ring camera at the back of your house, let's say someone knocks on your front door.
Yeah.
And then you hear the alarm or the chime for the back. That's a pretty good indicator if you're not expecting anyone to be in the back of your house,
We
right?
can set up that way.
Yeah. Then the other thing that she mentioned too is just like the storm door or that glass door. Having that glass door locked so that way even if you had to open your front door, that glass door is locked, you still have another layer of protection to kind of keep yourself inside and keep other people out of the house. So the Ring cameras are really good, or any type of camera that at least alerts when there's motion so that you can hear it and know that there's something going on in a part of the house that you weren't expecting it. And then again, like that secondary door that you can lock, be able to open your regular door and see out and see what's going on. So those are good too.
Thank you. Oh, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Just to mention that right now, we are in the middle of a countywide reassessment. So if there's anybody posing as a reassessor coming to your door, our reassessors wear bright vests. They should have a badge. It should say Tyler Technologies. And they do, at this point, have a right to go around your house, but they should be very well marked. So somebody that is a fraud trying to mimic an assessor would not have the same type of vest on that says Tyler Technologies. I think it's front and the back.
I
So,
actually have a really good handout for that, and I will be happy to pass it along. So
Good, thank you.
all would have an example of what the assessor would look like. Yep. Yes.
I have a question, like, lots of people, like homes here, we have like a self, defense, like, camera around our house, like owl or ring, but we did not hook up 911, like automatically if somebody break in, 911 will be called. So, do we need to really like hook on ADT, this kind of security system? If anybody break in, then 911 be helped. Is good or better, or we want to know if a lot of people even break in, but the 911 tripping on, will you guys pay more attention on that?
I mean, I think a monitor system is always a better system for an alarm, because what ends up happening is that when you don't have a monitor system, and you're the only one monitoring your own system, you stop paying attention to your alerts, or you get so many alerts that you don't even want to look at it anymore, you take the alerts off. So if you're away from the house, you're not gonna be able to look at your phone. A monitor system is always the best security system, because a door opens, someone is in your house and it detects motion, it's automatic in calling the police, right? And we're already on our way, and then we have an indication of where the breach was. So a monitor system is always a better system, yeah.
Thank you.
Question about the assessor. Are they required to notify the homeowner before they do the assessment?
no. And they have been through most of the communities in the Hockessin area. There's a few stragglers that are out there, but no. It has been advertised through the county well. I mean, it was a court case. This is why we're doing reassessments. So they do not individually notify either the community or an individual that they will be coming to their home.
Yes, ma'am?
I'm just wondering, for the recent, this increased burglary case we reported to you, is that really you see a big increase, or this is normal numbers of cases you see?
We're definitely going to touch on that further down. Yes. Go ahead. Yes.
I just had a question about, what does the law say about soliciting? We get a lot of solicitors, and it's hard to tell who's legit and who's not.
Yeah, so solicitors are actually supposed to wear a lanyard that identifies themselves or which company they're with. Do they always do that? No, absolutely not. I know some of them can be aggressive and can make homeowners feel uncomfortable. So that's a personal call. If you feel that it rises to the occasion that you need to report that to the non-emergency, by all means do that. And then police will respond and kind of take over. Right?
I would also add though, if someone's soliciting, they should be in a state database and have a lanyard or some sort of identification. So look at that through your ring and other identifications. Don't just answer the door.
Right.
So, yeah.
But can I just add to this? But remember that is just a state badge. There's no background checks on any of these, so don't feel that because somebody shows up with a badge and a lanyard that you're secure, because there is nothing beyond the fact that they applied for the.
Nothing says you ever have to answer your door for anybody, so.
If you don't want to, you totally don't have to. I know you can even speak through like the ring doorbells. If we're not interested, please leave. So the lanyards they're supposed to be that blue lanyard that they wear. But again, it's it's official all the time. So
May we have more these patrol cars?
I would love to promise that.
More like a burglary, then they will know, we know them coming, we have a alert to this, because they're also watching this too.
Right.
So the best thing is we scare these people away, criminals away.
Right. I would love to be able to promise that, but unfortunately I can't.
Well, as of recently, we've added extra duty, like off-duty officers that are working. Hockessin, Upper Newark, and Greenville. I think the three most prominent days where we saw the burglary numbers be the highest. So we've added those in, and I think 5 or 6 hour blocks of time where extra officers are up in this area patrolling for that specific intended purpose.
That's great, really
So,
appreciate it.
and that's why I say, like, the way that you report things is very important. We love stats, we analyze stats. If we see there's a trend in a certain area, then that's what we do. We put extra resources in that area to kind of like combat that. So keep it in mind.
I would just add to something to keep in mind, anyone that's interested, that's younger, that's interested in becoming a police officer, we're looking for people to become police officers. We'd actually send us a letter every year, literally to say, hey, we're looking for somebody. It's getting at a point where they are so low staffed sometimes that it's becoming really hard to do their job effectively when we need them. So let's start talking up the profession, say nice things about it. We have a bill out there for recruitment and retention to help them out, as well as overtime. So I'm hoping we can all do our part.
Thank you. I would like to introduce you our legislators. Okay, State Representative Mike Smith.
I just wanted to thank the CACC. I know this was put together very quickly, so great job on communicating, and thank you to everyone, especially the members of law enforcement. They're able to change around their schedules to get here today. We know how important of a topic this is and something that is happening more frequently. I can't encourage people enough to get Ring doorbells and other types of things themselves to help out along the way. I can't tell you how many times I've seen in neighborhoods where it's just a string of people in a row. Having the Ring doorbell camera has done wonders in terms of trying to capture those. And of course, once we do find those folks, we need to make sure that we do prosecute them and keep them from doing that again and reoffending. So thank you so much for being here, and thanks to the CACC for everything that they do.
Thank you. I'm State Rep Mike Ramone. I'm actually in the 21st. Representative Michael Smith is right in this area. But we raised our family here on North Star Road, so I very much am well aware of this community. I do want to mention, I don't know, I was sorry I was a little late. I gave myself 2 hours to get here from the beach, and it took like about 35 more minutes than I thought, so I apologize very much. But County Councilwoman Janet Kilpatrick is already here, so if I missed her, I'm sorry. And Senator Sturgeon's here too, I see. So, but I would like to say, you know, I have live in a community in across the street. I have a family that was robbed, and they were targeted because it was perceived that, and I don't know if this was mentioned, but I think it's very important that you're aware of this. This group that does this stuff, they're organized, and they're focusing on places where they feel they can get the highest, you know, return with the least risk. And, you know, going to the Indian community, the Asian community, the Chinese communities, all the communities where many people don't necessarily trust the banks as much, and they keep much more at home in environments that are safe. And they're often very dedicated people that work and are tenacious and are very on time and consistent in their scheduling. So all these beautiful attributes, these people target, because they're like, okay, there's a higher probability I'm going to get something. I know that they go to this swim team class for their child or swim school or whatever, and everything is so set up that they know when you're not going to be there, and they're very confident what they can get and how they can get it, and they even know where certain trends are to hide this. I mean, we learned a lot just from what happened across the street. But what worked for that situation was many of the community were all aware of what was going on, and we're looking and do have the Ring cameras and the other instruments that really helped the police have the tools to be able to make an arrest. The police, you know, we have great police, county and state, but they can't really do this alone. They're outnumbered. These people know where they are and when they're there. We got to work together, and it needs to be a community, not just the Chinese American community, not just the Asian business or the Asian community. It needs to be everybody working together in every neighborhood, on every street, keeping an eye out for each other. I know the county does a great job, and I'm probably you already said it, but they have their neighborhood watches. which are phenomenal. But please, be careful. If you're consistent and you're right on schedule all the time, be aware of this and get, like Michael said, get a ring camera or something else out there that's safe. We're here anytime to help you or give you guidance, but please don't ever try to be the officer. Let the officers be the officer, you know. And I had someone call me the other day. I'll be honest, it was my mom and dad, and they were driving down the road. A little different situation, but just everyone knows how tapped out the officers are. We don't have enough. We're asking so much of them, from getting speeders to, you know, putting up speed radar signs, to checking the businesses, to helping the community. They really are strapped to the end. So my parents were hesitant to call them. And lo and behold, they're driving right down Foxden Road, and they called me and said, you know, what do we do? And I said, you call 911. My father insists that he saw an animal laying on the outside of the road that was hit by a car. My mother thought it might have been a young lady that was hit by a car. Lo and behold, the police, first the ambulance was there, then the police. I ran over, and the poor lady was, it was a woman. She was not hit by a car, but there was a situation that involved her needing medical care and to work with the police. My point, same thing. If you think something's unusual in your community, you don't have to always call 911. You can call the non-emergency number, but don't just say, oh, I better not get involved, because if it's something out of your house, we want somebody else to also get involved. So we're a community, we work together, we're stronger together than not, and there's more of us than there are of them. So let's stick together and keep working, and we're here to help and do what we can. So thank you for having us.
State Senator Brian Townsend.
I am 100% positive whatever you have to say is more important than whatever I have to say. I like how Mike Ramone was naming other people that he thought hadn't been introduced yet. And all he was doing was making sure you knew which elected officials were here on time.
Yeah, there you go.
Which is not me or him or Representative Smith. But no, I want to echo.
We have to talk to Del Guy about that.
I need to talk to my 3-year-old about that.
There you go.
I want to echo basically what my colleagues had said. First and foremost, really appreciate law enforcement, how quickly they were available. The leadership that was on the emails with the CACC leadership made clear that no matter what time this meeting was called, representatives from law enforcement would be here. And that is no short order, particularly given how busy they all are. So I think it's a testament to how seriously they take public safety for all communities. Also DOJ as well. Matt Marshall, I think, was introduced probably earlier, but DOJ echoed that same thing. A lot's been said already. Law enforcement being here and speaking first or speaking next is very important for any additional details that you have. Making sure you know that we all are accessible to you as you have these concerns. And the CACC obviously is a wonderful partner and leader in the community for so many years. And every time an issue comes up, they very much reach out to us, and we try to work very quickly. Any targeting or discrimination in the community is cause for concern, and so I don't think anyone wants to minimize what's going on here. The real risks, the real threats people might face or feel, they are all legitimate, and we want to do whatever we can to make sure that it's addressed. I know for me, very personally, the targeting of people from the Asian community, the targeting of the people from the Asian community is very personal to me. Well, the cheats of this shit, it's on you ain't lie. So I know that when people focus on taking advantage of people or targeting, whether it's crime like this or burglaries or just like yelling things out in the community, it's not something I ever see at home, but I know that's something my wife very much might experience too. So very, very personal issue here as well. With that, just wanted to absolutely stop, and any additional information law enforcement has as to any details or any suggestions, and certainly answering your questions is what's most critical here. So coming off of this, whatever we can all do to be helpful and accessible to CACC leadership and to all of you is something that we are absolutely pledged to do. So thank you all very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Detective Matthew Arnold. I've been working for Newcastle County Police for the last 10 years, and I've been in the property squad for the last little over 2 years at this point. I'm going to go over some notes that I've come up with, so please don't think I'm texting or anything like that during this presentation, okay? But I have been involved in several investigations regarding what you've seen over the course of the last month or so on the news with respect to the South American theft groups that have come up to Delaware, out of state, and have been involved with some of the targeting. I will tell you that I can't get too deep into the details of some of those investigations as they are ongoing investigations, okay? So if you're going to ask specifically about whether or not someone's been arrested for a break-in at my friend's home or my relative's home or something like that, I simply can't answer that, okay? My job here is to keep you informed, give you ways to help protect yourselves, protect your families, protect your property, and protect your businesses, okay? I will tell you that over the course of the last couple of years, these thieves who've come from out of state have frequently hit areas that are geographically diverse, okay? And what I mean by that is all over the county. We don't have them necessarily concentrated in Hockessin. They're in Greenville, they're in Newcastle, they're in Bear, they're in Newark. They have hit all over the place, okay? So I want you to understand that they are not always looking for an area where there's big, expensive houses or where there's business owners that are living. They are all over the county, okay? The main thing I'm going to go over are ways to protect your property, okay? Master Corporal Allen did a great job and a very detailed job in talking about how to protect your property. I'm going to touch on a little bit of what she said, okay? First thing, when you see something that you think is suspicious, when you walk outside of your home or your business and you see cars that don't look familiar, like they may be watching you, okay? There is no problem with us as a police department in calling 911, as we will respond out and investigate that, okay? You are the homeowner or the business owner in this case. You know what's familiar to you and what's not familiar to you. We as the police don't always know that. So when you call 911 and you say, this person's sitting in a car outside of my home and they look like they might have been watching me, or you see somebody follow you from your house and it seems a little bit odd, please feel free to call 911. We are happy to come out. We will send a patrol car out to investigate that, okay? Because like I said, you as the business owner or the resident knows what's familiar to your area, okay? One of the things that we have seen help solve a lot of our cases have been license plate reader cameras, okay? License plate reader cameras are something that I would recommend that you talk to your homeowners associations about, okay? We've had several cases where they have been very influential in eventually catching the criminals, okay? License plate reader cameras are usually commercial end cameras that end up, you can research them online, but end up feeding into a database that stores the license plates of all of the vehicles that have come in and out of your neighborhood, okay? So say that there's a rash of vehicle burglaries where several vehicles in your neighborhood are broken into, and your neighborhood has a license plate reader camera that's affixed at the entrance and exit of your neighborhood. We can go back and look at the license plates that have been collected over a period of time, and that then gives us the ability to look at whether or not stolen cars came into your neighborhood and there were thieves that were trying to break into your cars and potentially steal another car, okay? Or there was a vehicle that came in and was doing surveillance on a specific home that ended up being targeted for a burglary later, okay? Definitely something I would highly recommend you speak with your HOA about. We can't recommend a specific type of license plate reader camera, but there are many options out there. You also have the option with those to share some of that information with the police so that we can respond out and investigate those matters a little bit quicker. But it's completely up to you and your neighborhood as far as what you want to do with all of that information, okay? Master Corporal Allen had talked about video surveillance at your residence and your place of business. I would highly recommend this because this has also been very influential in helping us catch some of these criminals, okay? There are closed circuit TV video surveillance systems out there that I would recommend those highest, okay? And the reason I say that is these out-of-state criminals have advanced methods sometimes that they'll use to jam Wi-Fi signals, okay? So if you do have a Wi-Fi based video surveillance system, that may not function when they are up at the residence and attempting to commit the crime. Sometimes they do, sometimes their technology dies, the suspect's technology dies before they can actually commit the crime, but there are times when they have been successful in jamming Wi-Fi systems, okay? I would highly recommend a CCTV video surveillance system. And again, we'll be able to send all of that information out to you in some of this PowerPoint material that we're going to provide later. But yes, a CCTV video surveillance system that covers the entry and exit points to your home, okay? So I would recommend something that, that covers all the four sides of your residence, the front yard and the backyard, okay? I can tell you that we had that very situation happen not too long ago, and because the residents had a CCTV video surveillance system, we were eventually able to pinpoint exactly when the burglars had entered the home. Otherwise, we would have had a 4-day window that we were working with, and it would have compounded the investigation significantly, okay? Someone had asked earlier about glass doors and windows, okay? If you have an alarm system that you want to set up in your home, you can have a company do that for you, or there's also some that you can set up manually on your own, okay? But one of the things that we highly recommend if you do put in an alarm system is a glass break sensor, okay? So what can go on your doors and windows are little small devices that actually send out a signal that your glass has been broken, okay? And that would notify the police on dispatch for a lot of the monitored companies. They'll send a message to police dispatch that says, we got a glass break sensor at this house. That indicates to us, okay, we should be looking for something that actually broke the glass, okay? And that kind of sets in our mind before we even get to the scene of what we should be looking for, okay? So that's extremely helpful as well. I'd highly recommend if you do decide to look at an alarm system that you look for something with glass break sensors, okay? Lastly, what I would say is there's another way that you can protect yourself at your residence or your business, and that is to not share your Wi-Fi information, okay? So you can actually, once you connect to your Wi-Fi system at your home or your business, you can go into the settings of your Wi-Fi devices, I'm sorry, your router. You go into the settings of your router and choose not to share your Wi-Fi name so that it's not public information, okay? That actually has become a new thing that we've seen where some of these criminals will actually seek out the Wi-Fi name so that they can then jam that specific Wi-Fi address, okay? So again, go into the settings of your router, your Wi-Fi router, and make sure that that name is not public information. You can hide that, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I think that's called the Wi-Fi broadcasting. So you don't want to broadcast your Wi-Fi name.
So Wi-Fi broadcasting is what it would officially be called.
Okay.
That's all I have. Does anyone have any questions for me? Yes, sir.
I do actually, a couple questions. For the camera reader you're talking about, the license plate reader.
Yes.
You talked about that in the context of HOAs. I guess, do you know of any individuals who go out and install that on their own properties, or?
Sure, there are. The question was about whether or not there are individuals who will install license plate reader cameras on their own properties. Okay. If you have a large property and you want to install something like that on your driveway, or some other, if you have a business where you want to install a license plate reader camera on your business, they're very high tech and they're a little bit more complex. There are people who have had them installed. We have seen them, especially with people who have commercial real estate property. They will install those license plate reader cameras at their businesses. One thing I might have left out, and Master Corporal Allen might have touched on before, it is very, very important that if you own a business, that you either have video camera surveillance at your business inside or outside, and then if you don't have them outside, that you go to the commercial property who you're renting from, whether that's in a strip mall or somewhere else, and say, hey, we really need to put up some cameras, if they don't already have them. Because the cases where we have had business owners targeted, there has been, in some instances, surveillance by the suspects at the actual place of business, okay? That is something that I can share, and that is something that would really, really help us, because we've actually been able to say, oh, that vehicle was at their business, and it was later at their residence conducting the burglary, okay? So, it's a great question. You had another question?
Another question about, real quick follow-up on that. So the license plate readers, there's no issue with like legality of an individual property owner putting up something that reads every single license plate that drives by in the neighborhood. There's no privacy issues with that at all, right?
So that's why we recommend that if it's an individual property owner, that they kind of cover their own property with that type of camera, and that if it's a license plate reader camera that's going to be covering plates on the street, that we go to the HOA and we discuss with the HOA what they want to do, so that the majority of neighbors who are interested in that kind of thing are in agreement.
Okay.
The HOA, sorry sir, the HOA is probably the best bet with the license plate readers, solely because they're cost prohibitive. They cost a lot of money. But they are doable. And we can get you, Sergeant Cumberbatch is basically our resident expert on license plate readers. So we can get you his information, but as far as them pointing towards the street, et cetera, there is no legal issue with that, because it's reading your tag and you have no expectation of privacy on a license plate specifically. So there are no concerns with that. And we use them, we use them all over.
Jamie, I didn't recognize you in your uniform at all.
Don't get used to it.
Fair enough.
Look for him on the road later.
Yeah, whoa. The other quick follow-up I had is, I know you're sincere when you say that people should call the police anytime they have any concern. I'm thinking specifically of cars parked in neighborhoods that look suspicious. This actually happens in my neighborhood pretty often. I've never called once maybe, but is there any additional information that like maybe is helpful for people to know whether it's like there's not really good reason to think it's suspicious? Like, would someone who's being suspicious not be likely to park like right outside your house and further down, or do you not want to get into any details and just say like, look, if you have any concerns, just call us?
I'd love to give you a straight answer about exactly how they're doing, but they break it up. Each crew that has come from out of state has had their own way of doing things, right? So some will be parked right out in front of the house, some will be parked a little ways down. And the main thing I think is to be vigilant about, if you are going somewhere and you are, say, you have an appointment scheduled, or you go to work every morning at a certain time, or you go to a place of business every morning at a certain time, and you walk outside, and that you take that first initial look, take 5 to 10 seconds, and just look outside to your street and see if there's anything within view of your front door that looks abnormal or suspicious, right? You see something that's a vehicle running that then may, after you leave, drive right out behind you, that you don't see very frequently, okay? That's something that I would say that you should probably call about, to be honest, with what we're seeing right now in terms of this increase, okay? I can't say that they're going to specifically sit in one place or another. We've had them sitting right outside of people's houses before, unfortunately, so.
I just wanted to add one thing that an officer said at my son's school was try to be as inconsistent as you can on your schedule when you go get the mail, when you go to the car, when you're doing different things. That way, you know, you are being scoped out. They can't really tell where you are all the time. It may be unpredictable.
I had at a couple meetings actually, and I profusely asked them to modify this, and maybe this is for county councilwoman, but the county currently, when you have so many alarms called in, they give you a fine. And I'm telling you, it makes a difference. I've had people not have their monitored anymore, or they'll call in after, and sometimes they aren't there, and it's really messy. One person in particular came to me and said, you know, I had 3 alarms in the year. Every single time my alarm went off, there was somebody trying to get in my house, and they were left.
and it was still marked as an alarm against me, and he said, I only get a certain amount a year. I don't even know all the rules, but if there's somehow we could either let them, like if you get 5 in 5 days and your alarm system's fixed, I surely don't want to take our police off the streets for 5 fake alarms, but is there a way that could be modified to some degree? And is that countywide or is that statewide?
County.
County.
State has a program as well, but it's for false alarms.
Well, and that's sort of what this is, but where do you, how do you classify something as false? If the police go and there's no one there, they say it's a false alarm, but it might have been because the alarm went off that, you know, you see what I'm saying?
It also depends, like a lot of times the alarm company will call and say, maybe it's a window alarm for a business. We'll go out and check the alarm, and we'll try to contact the business's affiliate to try to justify either the response or if it's a true false alarm. And also weather is always, there's a lot, can be a factor when it's either hard rain, wind, that can trigger alarms. We do notate that in our reports, and that doesn't necessarily go towards a false alarm when it's a weather-related event. So we try to do our due diligence to protect the business and homeowner on the false alarms, but if we don't have a program like that in place, obviously this perspective is important to us as well, but those folks that do have problematic alarms definitely take up a lot of resources when we're responding to those repetitively, and it takes away from the alarm that needs our attention. So it's a balance, but we on our end, and I can probably speak for the county police as well, we do notate those different elements and variables, so it's not necessarily getting an alarm charge for true alarm activations.
And I thank you. I just would hate for somebody to, there's, you know, to disarm it so they don't get fined $50 and whatever. And I will say, Captain Lloyd and his team come to all of our coffees, or as many as they can, all the time. The county is always at anything we ask them to go to. So if you do have, like you're not in Michael or mine or the senator's districts or the councilwoman's, and you would like an officer or whatever, I'm sure they'll be there. I'm sure they probably said that before we got here, but it really makes a difference for people coming to those meetings to be able to ask the questions too. And I think probably the most important thing is like do the best you can to protect yourself, but just try not to be predictable. If you're predictable, that's not.
And to also mitigate the alarm, false alarms, be responsive to your alarm companies.
Yes.
If they call and say you have an activation, take that phone call, either confirm or deny the allegation or the activation, and then they will communicate with the dispatch center and cancel us, and that doesn't go against a false alarm if we don't get to the scene before all that communication occurs. Because typically the alarm company, when they get an activation, unless it's an elevated activation, tries to contact the homeowner or business owner first, and then they trigger an alarm response from us. So just be diligent in that effort too. Kind of like the representative said, it's a community, we all want to help each other, and we all want to with the common goal of mitigating these occurrences.
And Mike, I think we're getting less now. This was put in years and years ago because alarms were just becoming prevalent in residential homes. And I think some people didn't know how to manage it, or you know, the door would be a little ajar and the alarm would be on. So according to my neighbor here, we have less now. I used to hear from constituents all the time, you know, I got $50 fine because my alarm went off 3 times and I wasn't even home and blah, blah, blah. But if we're not hearing that anymore, I think that we are probably more under control now. But I don't know that it's worth going through the effort of taking that off the books.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting
You know.
taking it off. I'm just suggesting for people to, you know, not just undo their system so that they, because they're worried about the $50.
I just want to add, thank you, Michael, because more and more of us actually put these, you know, home alarm system in place, okay? Actually, see, the false alarm is our mind, okay? Don't want to overburden you guys. You did, you know, otherwise, okay? So we all get in trouble. However, okay, so if we just, don't overburden it. But if we put this system, sometimes we may inexperience how to control this, okay? And then so get penalty. That's something really behind our mind, okay? So how to set it up, and what kind of service we need to subscribe. So. Yeah, if we can make this more, so more education, so maybe updated rules, okay, so make it clear, to us, coming back to us, so we definitely welcome that.
Well, I'm glad you have that in the back of your mind, because one thing I want you to think of too is that while false alarms you would think would be a burden right? I will take 100 false alarms over a real break-in, right? Because that way I know you're not a victim. I'm going to something that, okay, so maybe we can work on, we can discuss, maybe us coming to a false alarm is gonna help you find maybe a window that's ajar or a door that's not sealing properly. That could help you, down the road, prevent any further break-ins. But I think I can speak for everybody in here that I'd much rather have a false alarm, several false alarms than the real deal, so.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, I'll see you back there.
So, kind of a quick question. First of all, can the HOA prevent you from facing a camera to the street? And second, do you have any, in general, are we in any trouble if my camera facing my neighbor straight, if it's too close? And third question is, over those crimes, consider all property crime, right? Not any human life, being in danger, right? Kind of great.
So I'll start with your last question, which was what we're talking about here is property crime primarily. You're correct. In most instances, burglars who come into the home are looking for property and they're not looking to do violence towards you. Okay, but that's not the case with everybody. Okay, so we don't try to make the assumption that when we're talking about burglary, there's not the potential for violent crime. Okay. The question about cameras, and again, you have to take it up with your individual HOA as far as what will go on in terms of cameras, specifically for a license plate reader that would show some people coming in and out of the neighborhood, okay? On your own personal property, you can set up whatever type of video surveillance system that you want, okay? If your camera points out and hits a certain portion of the street or hits your neighbor's yard or what have you, that's perfectly fine. You're allowed to put up what you want to on your property, okay? And if people are upset about that, well, that's too bad. You're allowed to protect your property and keep video surveillance in that manner. Okay.
Just to add to that, an HOA is a volunteer organization. There's no legal authority with that. It's a maintenance corporation. If you have a maintenance corporation, that's who you should check with. I've never seen that care.
But HOAs have them. They put, a couple in my district, I know have put cameras up. It just depends on the funding.
Yes, sir.
All right, so I have two quick questions. What is the best way to identify a suspect if they do in fact come near your property? And so like, body tattoos, haircuts. These are actually real things that people use to identify suspects. But anyways, and then also the second question is, when it comes to actually individual seniors or individuals that may not have English language as their primary language, when we call Newcastle County, they will say fire EMS. That will throw a lot of people off. And how do we ensure that, our community here is actually better served?
Sure. I'll start with your last question. If you call 911, you will eventually get police dispatch. Okay, so if you call 911 immediately, which is the best thing to do in this case, you will eventually get transferred to the police. Okay, so if you find that your home has been broken into, or you're trying to report something suspicious, call 911. Okay. I can tell you that we've had burglars that I've dealt with that don't have tattoos, that are tattooed, that are short, tall. I mean, there's a older gentleman, younger ladies. We've everything across the spectrum. Okay. I will tell you though, to kind of touch on that. If you do end up seeing somebody who's suspicious and you call 911 and say, I have a suspicious person at my front door, being as descriptive as possible of this person is very important, okay? So if you can say they have short black hair, they have a red t-shirt on, they're wearing blue jeans, and they walked away, it looked like they had white sneakers on, that may be extremely useful information down the line in an investigation, okay? So I would really ask that if you do see something like that, whether it's a description of a person, a car, something they're carrying, like a backpack, whatever you can see, provide that description to the police when you are making that complaint. Okay.
Sir, with regards to your question about the 911 center itself, if the only, I guess, thing that you can relate to the call taker when they call is what primary language you want to speak or what dialect of that particular language, as long as you can get that out, they'll bring a third-party interpreter in right on the line. It's a one-button kind of call merge. Seconds is all it should really take, maybe a minute max. So if that's all you can get out is what language you understand, and they'll get somebody in there very quickly so that we can get the process moving so that the level of service isn't diminished by a language barrier.
I volunteer as NFD, so actually translate from my neighbors a lot when they're communicating disputes.
Thank you for doing that. It's huge help.
So really quick, just let me piggyback off of that. I see just in the front row, can I have a show of hands? Who does not have a cell phone in here? Right. I'll take those percentages anytime. The best way to remember what somebody looks like, take a picture. Right? We talked about video and how important that is. If you're inside your home and you see somebody that's suspicious, go ahead and take a picture. These cameras on these phones are better than, the $5,000 cameras you can buy. You could get a great picture with this. I can't tell you how many complaints that any law enforcement agency investigates that's solved by some little description. And, we brought up tattoos. I had a robbery trend that was solved by a gentleman who decided to take gloves off, and we saw tattoos on the top of his hands. And that led us to 25 robberies between Delaware, Pennsylvania, and Maryland that we were able to connect those guys to. So a quick picture, it could be a small detail on somebody's shirt, it could be a small dent on somebody's car that the investigators are able to go back and look through video surveillance and compare and identify, or equally as important, rule somebody out from a case. So if you have a phone and it's available to you, go ahead and you can put them on speaker and snap that picture, right? So when the police do come, you have that picture to show them, and even better, you can share with them. Yes, ma'am?
I was just wondering if you take a picture of burglar, maybe accident, because anyway, they're going to hurt you.
So, right, obviously, if there is any type of chance of confrontation, please avoid confrontation. But what I'm referring to is that if you're inside and you see a vehicle or you see somebody walking outside, no. But take that opportunity.
Don't open the door to take the picture.
That's a very good question. So that was kind of inferred in my response. So thank you for asking that. No, please avoid all confrontation.
Yes, sir, in the back.
Could you comment on how these out-of-state burglars identify their target?
So, a lot of the time, they'll be, I can't say specifically about exactly how one crew is operating, because so many of them pick and choose specific ways. Sometimes they'll use public databases, okay, so they'll pay for a database that has kind of like telemarketers do, okay, that have certain last names and zip codes, and they'll search those. That's one way that they'll determine who's a victim, but a lot of the times they'll do physical surveillance at the businesses and then end up following people home, okay? So that's why we talk about how important it is that you do, once, even if it's like later at night, you keep track of and watch who might be following you from your business, okay? And if you do see or feel like somebody's following you, from your business back to your home, call 911, okay? Because like I said, we have no problem coming out and investigating that, and that may lead to the development of suspects or would-be suspects, and that might actually end up preventing what would have been a burglary at your home. Yes, sir.
May I comment? And I'm not sure even if the officers can or can't, but using common sense, like if, certain places of worship or certain communities gather at, certain community centers, certain types of communities gather at, they're not going to go to just the community center, or just the church, or just the business. They kind of put things together. These guys are smart. So just be aware of that, and be aware when you're here, if you're leaving, if you always see the same car parked somewhere, or when you're place of worship, all those things. You don't have to be paranoid, but be cognizant of what's going on.
Pretend you're an elected official that people don't like, and you will just act like people are following you all the time.
Yes.
So you mentioned that geographically it had been diverse. I wonder what about the ethnicity? Is Town Hall giving you this impression that we are the target? Is that the case in the past events or the trend?
So recently, we have seen an increase in that happening. However, we're not saying that every burglary crew operates in that manner, okay? We've had burglary crews who have targeted specific ethnicities, and then we've had them target in other ways, okay? Because we're seeing an increase in this trend, that's why we want to make you aware that all of this is happening in this manner. Yes.
I don't want to get into like the case by case, but and you said that these people generally want to steal, not hurt. But the general trend, are these people armed? Do they have like knives, firearms, sharp objects?
So we have seen it. We have seen it. I would say that over the course of the last couple of years, they generally do not bring in weapons with the intention of hurting people. But they will have devices that can be used to, say, break windows or pry open safes. So they are carrying tools with them, okay? Most burglars have access or bring with them some type of tool to use, and that's what they're looking to eventually use. That being said, they can naturally arm themselves with something, okay? So that's why we try to tell people that if you do encounter somebody in your home, try to get away from that confrontation and call 911 immediately, okay? Yes, ma'am.
So I have a question because this was thrown together really quickly, and it was actually news to me that the AAPI community maybe was facing an uptick in burglaries compared to other communities. I know that was already asked, but I wasn't sure. I could use some clarity on the answer. Is that what you're seeing in terms of your data, that the Asian American community is being targeted? And if so, is it because they're Asian American, as in it's hate crime, or is it because of other factors, and what are those factors?
So I can't speak to all of it, but I can say that it has a lot to do with some of the factors that were discussed earlier, respective to money being kept in the home, gold jewelry, and high dollar items being kept in the home and not being necessarily locked, okay? I will say that it's natural for burglars to pick up on certain trends, right? So they'll see, or certain factors within the homes that they burglarize. So if they do burglarize the home of someone who is a specific ethnicity, and they tend to see a pattern in large cash, on large amounts of cash on hand, large amounts of jewelry that's not locked up, then they will assume, okay, well, if I've hit one or two of these houses, then I can continue to hit more, and I will be successful.
So it has to do with viewing a particular ethnicity as being particularly vulnerable because of certain patterns of behavior, not because of their ethnicity.
Maybe I would suggest I would suggest it's not a hate crime.
Right.
I would almost suggest it's a compliment. What they're doing truly is they're going where they think they can get the highest return on their theft.
Right.
So they feel a level of success, maybe a level of consistency in behavior, so they can make sure they know where they are. And they work hard. They're on a system, and it's not just Chinese American Community Center. It's the Indian community. There's many of them. So I know it's not one culture, one color, or anything. It's just people that they know have probably money and success, and maybe don't trust the banks as much as maybe others. And that's what I've heard often in several situations that unfortunately I'm aware of more than I'd like to be aware of.
And as mentioned, the punctuality and all that.
Yes,
In other
yes,
words,
it's almost.
my Latina people will not be targeted because
They're late. Well, I mean, that's why I was late. I didn't want everybody to think I had a pattern,
Good
Okay,
save.
I'm sorry, okay, go ahead.
Thank you,
There's
thank
someone
you,
who
thank
had
you,
an answer, but yes, ma'am.
I'm just curious, do we have insiders, with all these cases, because why they always target those families? Like I have a next door neighbor, they got robbed twice in here, and they have a small clinic, and it was not ours, it's always them.
So I'm sorry, what's your question? I couldn't quite hear you.
Do we have any insiders?
Insiders.
That's
Okay. I can't really talk about the nature of each investigation, but I will tell you that there's, things happen frequently with different groups in different ways, okay? I'm not gonna rule anything out, and I will promise you that if information's provided to us over the course of an investigation that, hey, that there may be someone who isn't to be trusted as much, and you can provide a reason for that, then we're absolutely going to look into that as part of the investigation. We don't neglect that when it comes to the case. Okay? Yes, sir.
Question for our elected officials. What are things we can do in the state legislature to make sure that these things are mitigated? For example, approving technologies that police can use to better capture criminals, safeguarding the communities, and increasing punishments for burglaries that are armed, okay, not being armed. So what can we do to make sure we can stop this?
Well, one thing we just passed was the residential cameras for ticketing and speed. When that technology is upgraded, this would be a natural progression in that regard, so that it's already within the communities. Pictures can then be taken, and it can then help within an investigation. So I think that's a natural one.
My number one is funding law enforcement.
I'll remember that with my bill. I will remember that today.
Well,
Let
I
me
mean,
give a different perspective.
sure
And I don't mean to beat up on the Attorney General's office at all, but I think there is a area of compassion that's come out of Dover to try to help those who are maybe going in an incorrect direction to modify behavior and come back out, right? I mean, you got the hardcore guys, and you got the criminals of socio-economic world, and then you got those who are just addicted to drugs or alcohol. I look at them in three different areas with three different levels of treatment. I would probably place these organized efforts in a category 3, where we need to not just slap their hands and say, "Oh, be a good boy." You gotta, you do it. You're not getting out, and this is what's going to happen, and that reputation will grow, and then maybe move to another state because we're so small, as opposed to the guy who, unfortunately has an addiction to drugs and ran into somebody's house and grabbed, medicine out of the medicine cabinet. I don't think that person should be treated the same. So we need to use our discretion, and we need to start being tough on bad criminals and bad people, and maybe the compassionate that has been going through on those who need help and guidance. And I think we need to do a better job as a legislature of making that very clear that this, we're going to be harder and more, less compassion, and this, we're going to be more compassionate. Matt, I didn't mean to jump on it, but I think it's the Attorney General's the one, we can make the laws, but you guys digest.
I'm glad you say it. So you're absolutely right that you've got to sort of treat cases on a case-by-case basis. We're the prosecutor's office in Delaware, by the way. What I can tell you, and I also can't get into active cases, those that have been resolved here, 100% that have been convicted, have resulted in jail time followed by deportation. So I want to be clear that we're not talking about people who are being released right back out. You are correct that there's a body of offenses where we look closely at mitigating circumstances, whether or not drug diversion is warranted, things like that. In this case, that's not what we're seeing. The other thing I'll flag for you while we're here, our senior leadership team has been monitoring this closely. Our misdemeanor and felony trial units are working closely with Newcastle County PD and DSP. The reason we've been able to get the outcomes that we've gotten so far because of the work that police are doing on this. We also have a division of civil rights and public trust in our office that we're very proud of. And as you were asking about what the legislature can do, we're kind of talking about two different bodies of law here, but I will give the legislature credit because in the last couple of years, I don't remember whether it was this year or the prior, they updated and modernized our hate crime laws to be the strongest in the country right now. We have jurisdiction over those through Decrypt. I'll make sure that we follow up the CACC to make sure that you have resources on how to get in touch.
Yeah, I have a follow-up too. So when I'm sorry, but sometimes the male legislators have a lot to say and the women get overlooked. And I think this community knows a little something about sometimes feeling overlooked. As I was saying about funding the police, I wanted to elaborate a little bit more. What I mean is I'm on the Joint Finance Committee, and we decide how budgets are, all state monies are allocated. I can't speak to the county police, but hopefully they're also being well funded by the county council people and the county executive. So we do have a shortage in law enforcement, similar to we have a shortage in the teaching profession. And there are many things we can do and are trying to do to encourage people to go into the profession of law enforcement, to make sure that the pay is incentivizes people to want to go in, to make sure the benefits incentivize people. And that's just something I wanted to make clear, that while you can talk about being tough on crime, the best medicine is prevention. And we prevent crime by having enough law enforcement officers visible in our communities, on the streets. And so I just want to let you know, as a legislator, that is where I see my role, is making sure we are making law enforcement an attractive job to go into, and so we fill all the empty positions that are, remain empty currently. I also want to say, as was mentioned by my friend Matt here, that yes, and I fall into the camp of people who believe in making it possible for people who have paid their dues for a crime to be able to re-enter society, because that makes us safer as a society. Because when you have people coming out of jail who cannot reintegrate and become constructive members, productive members of a society, they're more likely to turn to a life of crime, because that's the only way they can get by. Because no one wants to hire them, no one wants to let them live nearby. So I believe we're safer. But that really isn't relevant when we're talking about crime syndicates from South America, as I believe we're talking about. And so, as was mentioned, these are not the people that we are being warm and fuzzy towards and helping them re-enter society. They don't have any ties to our community, so they are not part of the programs that we are putting in place to help people re-enter society, re-enter the community. They are South American crime syndicates, and therefore, when they are caught, best case scenario, they are prosecuted and deported. So this one has really nothing to do with the other. We do believe in compassion and second chances for people who have ties to the community and have an opportunity to get back and become productive members. That's not what we're talking about here. This is a group of people who don't have ties to the community, so I also want to make that clear.
Just as a follow-up real quick, we already do have an active bill for recruitment and retention of law enforcement. It would be one-time funding to offer, I think it's $3.5 million to each jurisdiction, depending on how many people that they had the year before. All the chiefs are in support of it. We'll send out the bill to you guys afterwards, so you guys can support it in Dover next year. Look forward to the senator jumping on as a sponsor, so that we can try to get it over the finish line with the Joint Finance. So it's already ready to go.
I want to let that gentleman ask this question.
He's been raising his hand a long time.
Go ahead, sir.
What are you hearing from your counterparts in Pennsylvania? Are they seeing the same concentrations of activity like you're seeing in Hockessin and Greenville, et cetera?
So this is not just a problem unique to Delaware, okay? This is a nationwide issue right now. Delaware is in a unique spot in that a lot of these crime syndicates, when they come into the United States, they're going to use major cities as home bases, okay? So Miami, Florida area has gotten crushed with this type of criminal activity, okay? Delaware is unique in that we're not that far from several major cities, right? You can come down from New York City, commit a burglary, and be back in New York City before dinner time, okay? Which is unfortunately what we've seen happen in the past. So this is a nationwide issue. We're just kind of in a unique spot here in Delaware in that we're so close to some major cities that it makes it a little bit more accessible, because that is something that does happen. That they will use major cities as a home base because there's so much more concealment when they can get back to a major city. So, yes, ma'am.
First, thank you very much for the very good tips for prevention. I really appreciate it. I would like to know, because we all part of a community leader, and we want to know that there was one burglary happened in Hockessin on July 14th, and we have the video capture the person and even the vehicles. Is there any more development?
So I can't speak to specific cases right now because they're active investigations. So I can provide updates when they become available to the actual homeowners, and I can do that, when the appropriate times are. This isn't really the appropriate time to provide individual updates, okay? But if you do have a family member or someone who is looking for an update, the detectives who have come out and investigated that, if they reach out to those detectives, they can absolutely get an update on their cases, okay? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. And how do you identify at night if the burglar come to your house at 2 o'clock in the morning?
So, you're talking about you as the police, or you?
I had happened to me in my house 2 o'clock in the morning, and I thought it was a deer. So ended up was a robberies.
Okay.
And then we called the policeman, and we called him, and then the policeman asked me to go outside to identify him. I told him I will not do that. So was 10 police cars in my house, and the 5 dogs, and I was scared to death, So I wanted to, any suggestions do you? How do you know that's what's
Sure,
wrong?
I see what you mean. So each case is going to have its unique set of circumstances, right? Your case was a pretty unique one. I can say that there's certain ways that we can assist with making an identification when that's in play as a possibility, okay? If you share those concerns with the police officers, and we would do our best to make it so that if you thought maybe you could identify them, that you were put in a safe position to be able to do so.
But you don't see them at night.
So like I said, each one's going to be a unique set of circumstances. Sometimes you're going to be able to see them, and sometimes you might not be able to. It depends on each person's perspective, right? So some people may actually encounter someone and come close and face to face with them. Others might not. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Question.
Oh, yes.
Okay, previously I asked if you can comment on how the burglars identify their targets. Yeah, and you mentioned that maybe they will follow you from your business or from your community center, and so watch out for any cars or people are following you to your home. That's one mode of operation, yes. But then just now you mentioned that maybe they're based in New York City and they come here and do the breaking and then go back to New York for dinner. And so if indeed they are that form of operation, then my original question again is that how can you comment on how do they identify you as their next victim?
So
That is my question. That was my question before, the insider. I was wondering,
So-
they're not local. How do they know?
Right, so
They target them right on every time.
Right, so a lot of the time what will end up happening is that each crew that is made up of several members will have their own way of operating, right? So I can't say necessarily for sure that every crew is going to be based out of New York City, because they're not. And I can't say that every crew is going to be based on doing surveillance at your restaurant or your residence, because they're not. There's other ways of researching where people live, and sometimes these crews will do that research in advance prior to even coming to do the burglary, okay? And I don't have all of the answers to be able to tell you exactly how each crew is going to do each burglary.
Yeah, I'm not looking for
Okay.
specifics. I'm just asking that after these waves of out-of-state foreign burglars, they pass through different cities, different areas, and they commit so many burglaries. And I'm sure you have statistical data, you have caught some, and then you should develop some database or understanding of what's the mode of operation for not necessarily one group, but in general. So, I mean, can you share with us your learning from your investigation, you know?
Sure, go ahead. So I think it's one thing, you're asking for specific questions, and you know, Seth and I have talked about this a lot. One thing that's specific to Asian American people, and Representative Ramon talked about Indonesian people, right? Religious artifacts, cultural artifacts, you talk about how you're being identified as a victim, right? One of the things that Matt's been focusing on pretty aggressively is this, you know, business owner being followed or being watched at their place of business, they're following them home to where a burglary occurred. But you know, that's only one. Then there's just regular opportunists. But one of the things we were seeing, you know, years ago, and it changes over time, but you know, if you have cultural artifacts or something outside of your home that indicate what your nationality or ethnicity is, right? Again, it goes back to what Representative Ramon's talking about is crimes of opportunity. These guys have done, say, you know, 15, 20 burglaries in people of Chinese descent, and they know they can get a large amount of cash, a large amount of jewelry, and a lot of it's unlocked, okay? And people aren't home at certain times of the day. So those are some of the things we see on a consistent basis, you know? If you have that stuff, I never sit here and tell you to take whatever your religious artifacts down outside of your home, but just be mindful of the fact that that is something to these people as they drive through neighborhoods, they may look and see and say that artifact or that decoration or those lights or, you know, we have this conversation a lot around Diwali with Indian families, you know, that they decorate the home very, very bright. But it is a telltale indicator of what their culture is. And if you have these people that focus in on the advantages of breaking into homes of people of that descent, again, a lot of cash, gold, jewelry, and things like that, is you have to decide what type of risk mitigation that you want to take. Again, and balance that with honoring your culture or your religious beliefs. But that's one way. You know, again, otherwise, you're just looking at driving through, go on Realtor.com and see where the most expensive houses are. And then, you know, and as much as I hate to say, you know, Newcastle County has a fantastic database that will tell you who a property owner is, and you can Google them, and then you can figure out that they work at a really baller law firm, and there's a good chance that they may have they may have a good amount of money or jewelry in that house. So there's yeah, you.
You're describing my wife. Asian American who works at a law firm. Yeah.
So let me compliment what the captain's saying. I hear both of you asking the question in different ways, but I think where you're going is, well, they're coming from New York, they're coming from Baltimore, they're coming from whatever, and they're coming down here and they're robbing people. That's not actually what's happening. They have like troops that come out that case, and they know how to case. So they have 4 or 5 different people that they're tracking. They'll case the homes, and you know the ones that look most vulnerable. You know, they don't have any cameras. They don't have a dog that's going to be barking at me. They don't have well lit. They don't have you know, whatever. You just and they're in the back of the cul-de-sac. All these pieces are going through these people's heads, and we know, you know, they're always at this particular place at this time, so that's the time we can go. You see, so I don't, you know, don't think, oh, we're going to jump in the car in New York and come down and rob Delaware. It's like they come one day, I think was mentioned on the record, they'll come one day, maybe they're going to come back another day and see how much is consistent. They might be, you know, tracking out, maybe casing 100 with the intent to hit 10 houses over 2 nights. So they'll go from 100 down to 50, down to 25, and then that night, as they're going through those 25, maybe something's changed, and then just go to the 10 that they think are most opportunistic. That's how these guys are thinking. This isn't just little
Larry run into the garage and stealing somebody's mower. You know, these guys know what they're doing. So,
And your point earlier, just because you have a plate, that car could be a stolen plate, it could be anything.
Right.
You know, so in terms
Right.
of that investigation, you gotta let them do their job.
But my only point is, the more preventative stuff you put out there, the more you're gonna deter them from hitting you. I'm sorry to say, maybe they're gonna hit your other person, but that's why we want you all to do something to make it more, you know.
Is it advised to unlist your address in the yellow book, the telephone book?
I think there's, well, why don't you answer that? There's so many places they can get information.
There's telephone books still?
There you go.
I got a comment.
Yes, sir.
Does anybody here use this app called WeChat?
Oh, yeah.
WeChat, right?
Yeah.
All right, so this is actually a prime example of why like Citizen Police Academy is critical. I actually attended a Citizen Police Academy. It was very informative when it comes to actually telling the individual or the community how the police department works, some of the things that we need to report a crime, some of the things we can do to prevent a crime, like don't park your Lambo outside of the garage. Right, that's you keep it inside the garage.
Yeah, you can drive it around and look cool.
Right, right. So with that said, like one of these things I think we're seeing is actually, you know, an opportunity to build a bridge in the Asian community and also our executive, legislative, and judicial branch. Right? I mean, right now the Division of Public Health still has traditional Cantonese and traditional Mandarin as their Chinese language. And this kind of gives us an opportunity to really improve that dialogue. Right, so maybe perhaps we can talk about a Citizen Police Academy that's more geared towards the AAPI community, especially when we have seniors, especially when we have people who we communicate through WeChat, right? We found out a lot of this burglaries through this app called WeChat, right? Some other families use WhatsApp, or I don't know, there are also all different kinds of social media platforms where we can communicate.
So that's impeccable timing. We actually have a Citizens Police Academy coming up in the fall. We are accepting applications now. If you follow us on social media, it kind of walks you through how to apply. Please apply. Yes.
Would that be possible to give this information to Fensha, to CACC, and then broadcast to all the members? Then we can follow.
Yes, I would love to put that out. That's no problem. I can link. Or if you seek us out on social media, it's already out on social media. Just Newcastle County Police. But yeah, I will definitely. Yeah, I'll link up with you, and I have a bunch of information I need to pass along. You okay?
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Can you tell us what a Citizens Police Academy is?
Yeah, I would love to. Basically, it just provides an overview of what police do, the kinds of things that we go through. We have classes that will walk you through investigations, you know, everything from, like, not necessarily firearms training, but everything from just what we see on a daily basis, what we go through. It really just provides an overview of what police do. We even have an entire class that on just car stops, just basic car stops and what we go through just doing car stops. It really just provides you with more of an understanding of how police officers think, how we operate. So yeah, anything that gives you a more understanding of what police work, of what we go through, can't be wrong, right? Can't be good.
Yeah, great.
So,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Another question is, your presentation, is it available?
I will get you some kind of versions that you can translate that and translate it. Yes, yes.
So myself and Corporal Allen will be here a little bit later to answer other questions that you might have individually or what have you. Yes.
Can I ask two quick just for you specifically? These might seem kind of small, but I don't want to assume anything about how frightened people are or are not. Two questions. One is the issue of pets or dogs is brought up. I'm curious if you see trends with regard to people who have dogs in the home less likely to be burglarized or more likely to have the burglar be scared off. So I'm curious about that, and I'll do my second question after you address that.
Chihuahuas and pit bulls.
So we do advise people to, if they feel comfortable with animals in the home, dogs do typically deter burglaries from happening, but they're not. That's not a guarantee. So we have seen situations where there have been dogs in the home. It is a good deterrent. I mean, if you have a larger dog, especially a dog that's protected in your home, that's going to happen. That's going to be a good deterrent.
And Senator, to clarify, I hear you, but I was just
putting a group of things. You know, if you have all, you know, you put all those things together, they're like, okay, this guy's got none, he's got all these, this is easier to hit, that's all.
Sure, no, I was just curious if law enforcement had an official position on it. My second question relates to the issue of whether you feel you're being followed or not. It's a very serious conversation because Delaware has very significant traffic safety issues. The number of traffic deaths that we see is very alarming, and it's trying to be a focus from the governor, state legislatures, law enforcement. And so as you were talking about the idea of being followed, and again, I know you're very sincere when you say, please call 911 if you think you're being followed. Please call 911 if you think you're being followed. I've started to wonder whether people might get overly anxious, think they're being followed when there's actually not a reason to think they would. They might drive faster, they might try to run a yellow light, whatever. So I'm a little bit, you know, I want to make sure that we don't encourage, you know, driving dangerously, you know, in traffic. So my question about it is, perhaps even before calling 911, do you have any specific, like, other best practices where if you think you're being followed, it's best, especially if it's not late at night, to maybe pull into a shopping center parking lot for 30 seconds? Or are there any other quick tips you might be able to give a little more color on the best practices for how to conduct yourself if you think you're being followed?
I'll say it. I just came from a unit that is both like marked patrol officers and undercover officers. So we deal a lot with a lot of the undercover element of it, right? And sometimes we're following drug dealers around who are doing things. And I'll tell you some of the things that you can do, they do the same thing, right? If you think you're being followed, maybe make a U-turn and see if the car's making a U-turn with you, right? Because if you were originally going to go straight, and now you're making a U-turn, that car's making a U-turn, you make another U-turn, if that car is still making a turn with you, what are the chances that that's somebody that's just happened to miss the light just like you, right? Making a left in a neighborhood when you should have made a right. Your street is on the right, but you made the left, right? And you're kind of seeing who makes the loop with you. You circled the block one time to make sure that you weren't being followed. So those things you can do, and it won't necessarily delay your day much more than a minute, you know? But it's something that you can pay attention to and kind of feel better that, okay, maybe it was nothing, right? Those are things you can do. We talked about, Mass Corporal talked about earlier, belief, desire, and opportunity, right? So two of those things you can't control. You can't control their belief, and you can't control their desire. The only thing that you can have a chance in controlling is their opportunity, right? So at the end of this, I just want to make sure you're remembering that paying attention, reporting things that seem suspicious. It's our job to figure out if it is or it's not, right? You know, putting the cameras up, setting your alarms when you leave the home, setting your alarms when you're in the house and you're going to sleep, set it at home. So if the door opens up, the alarm is going off. I want to make sure that we have enough time here today so that way after this, if you guys have questions that you want to ask the officers here or representatives who may be able to stay, questions that you have time to do that individually. So I didn't know if you had anything else or you wanted to wrap here.
Our time is scheduled from 1 to 3, but everyone here, if you have any question, you are more than welcome to stay here, unless you guys have to leave to protect other people.
That was never done, right?
I have a very silly question.
Never.
I never realized police officers are so important now. That's first. And secondly, what's the difference between the Newcastle County police officers and the Delaware
That's not silly, that's actually a great question.
police officers? I never realized what's the difference. To me, same.
There's really no difference.
If you're calling from your home, Newcastle County Police will respond.
Jurisdiction and who shows up based on the phone call and where it was called, that may be the only difference, but in general, when you're comparing us, the state police, or any other police that you've seen in the state, we're all here for public safety, we're all here for you, we're here to make sure that you guys are safe, that you have the things that you need to feel safe, so there's no difference there, so.
They work
blue
together
uniform,
very
brown
well
uniform,
across jurisdictions.
whatever shows up. There's times where it's a neighborhood call and we're asking for state police to come help us because we were just low on numbers, and there's times when there's something happening in a business, the state police is calling for us, and we're showing up just the same. So for us, it doesn't make a difference.
And that happens immediately, sorry. That happens immediately at the dispatch level. So they already know. So it's not like they're reaching out to us to say, hey, are you available? Our dispatchers already know. They know where we are. So if they are tied up on something, we're asked. We ask them a lot. We rely on each other. It's a great partnership, and not just between us and Newcastle County, but Delaware law enforcement in general. Throughout the state, anywhere you are, there is a great partnership.
You don't need to know who to call, you just can call 911.
Yeah, 911, yeah.
It'll funnel to the right
Yep.
person.
That'll automatically happen.
That's what I was gonna interject. When you call 911, if you're in a community, it's gonna go to the county. If you're on a high, when a business on a main road, it's gonna go to the state. If the county's overwhelmed and you're in a community, they're gonna send the state. The 911 dissects everything and sends it out. You just call one number, and usually the state police would be more like the major highways if you drive really quick, and the county police would be more like the community streets if you drive really quick. But as far as helping you when you're in need, 911 figures out what's available, gets them there, and we have these guys work so well together, and I know every single elected official would agree with that. We're very, very fortunate, because that doesn't happen in all police forces. So.
I also have another silly question, like the police officer fundraising, I always got the call, because so many scams by the call. So I always refuse, because I don't know this person is a real one or fake one. So I want to protect myself. My point is, you officers work so hard, and we are the community, we are the same thing, whole tied together. If you need the fundraising, I love this kind of meeting, so we can call people, come here to do fundraising for you guys, work hard to protect us.
So I can touch, just real quick, I will say this is another thing that wasn't brought up earlier, okay? One thing we have seen an increase in are scam phone calls, okay, over the course of the last couple of years. The police will never call you asking you to take money somewhere. Okay, so if you ever get a phone call saying, hey, you need to take money to this location and drop it off to this person, they'll be wearing, that type of thing has happened several times over the course of the last year, okay? That we will never ask you to write a check for somebody or something along those lines, okay? So just, that has been something that has targeted specifically the elderly population over the course of the last couple of years, okay?
The only groups that would fundraise for law enforcement will be the unions that represent either the state police or the bulk of all other Delaware law enforcement, and none of them do any type of phone solicitation. So it's a 99.9% chance that is a fraudulent call, or it's not fraudulent in the sense that it is going to a law enforcement cause, but it's not a law enforcement cause centric to Delaware.
And this also happens with the fire companies and all. Whenever you get calls from your fire companies, you're like, give us money, blah, blah, blah. Some of those, they give the fire company a very small percentage. If you want to give something to someone, this is my guidance, give it to them. Go to Mill Creek or Hockessin Fire Hall and give them a check in the building. Go to the police stations or send it directly to them. Don't go through, in my opinion,
If someone calls your phone asking for money, just don't go.
And never give you credit.
Rule of thumb, don't do
Never.
it.
And can I just say that somebody did call me yesterday and told me
To
that
give you
they-
money? No, I'm just kidding.
Say yes.
Yes.
So someone that I know had a call on their cell phone, and the ID on the phone came through Delaware State Police. And it was a solicitation call. And she said to me, I didn't really know what to do. And I said, just do not give money. I said, if it pretty much was saying what you said, I said, you're gonna have probably Troopers Association or the FOP. And those would be the only two, and they would not come through as Newcastle County Police or Delaware State Police. So it's happening. So,
Yeah, and you can change your call, they can change the name that shows up on the caller ID.
well, I walked into my house one day and my phone was ringing and it was my name. Yes, they would call from any.
Let's put a very fine point on it then, and I don't mean to interfere with any fundraising of anyone in law enforcement, but given the opportunity out there now to confuse people and take advantage of people, you should absolutely never give money when contacted by law. If someone says they're law enforcement asking for money, assume that it's false, and we will ask law enforcement, unions or others to find a new way of fundraising effectively. So just simple rule, don't give money when people call, even if they say they're from law enforcement. Don't give money if people call saying they're from law enforcement.
Even if they are calling and you, maybe they are a hoax, if you say, you know what, I do think I want to give something to the police, send it to the places that they say, the Delaware State Police, and if you send them a check, right to them, and it's written wrong, they'll tell you, but at least send.
Unit that comes out and does consumer education, scam prevention is one of their bread and butter topics. I'm sure they would be happy to come to the center and speak to you, so I can follow up with somebody here afterward, but we've got a special investigator, Craig Weldon, who does a lot of education around what to look for in terms of the signs, what to do if you have been scammed. I don't want to derail us, but I'm sure we'd be happy to do a follow-up conversation around it.
Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the panel, I
Real
believe,
quick.
go ahead.
3 things from us. Number 1, we also have a Citizens Police Academy. Typically it occurs in Dover just because we're a statewide function, but we'll push information out about that through our community outreach. Probably for this population, the county police is probably a more beneficial Citizens Police Academy that you would get more out of than what you would get out of ours for this type of scenario. Secondly, we have a youth camp, Camp Barnes. It's down in Sussex County that is free to all Delaware youth, age range from 8 to 11. Really good opportunity for your grandkids, kids to participate in a free week-long camp. We're celebrating 75 years, and also a good way for us to recruit early and get the interest of Delaware's youth. It's free, it's a week-long, and staffed by state troopers. Our school resource officers are assigned down to that camp. It's right on the Asquewan Bay down in Sussex County. It's a beautiful camp. It's Monday through Friday. It's a live-in camp, so they'll pick you up at your local troop up here, the school bus, ship the kids down, and bring them back up Friday afternoon. It's free, no cost to Delaware families. Lastly, most of the concerns out of here were impacted with the Newcastle County Police, but we stand with our partners with the county police. We proactively reached out to the CACCDCAATownHallwPolice20230722full2, trying to solicit a list of business owners in our troop areas in Troop 1, Troop 6, and Troop 2 to increase our presence in those areas to support you all and the county police. We're here, we stand together with the county police. We're hearing and we're sorry that you're all dealing with this, and we appreciate your time and effort today.
But, Captain, would you just quickly say about the knocking down of the Troop 6 location at all, just in case anyone does?
So yeah, Troop 6 does impact this specific area. County Police deals with the communities. We're on Route 7 and on 72 and the highways and Kirkwood Highway. But in May 31st was our last day at the building. Thank you to our legislative partners across both aisles for getting funding to support a new building. It's an active construction area right now. The building is vacated. We are temporarily located at Troop 2 on Route 40 across from Glasgow Park, but that has no impact on our service to the citizens of our troop area. Our troopers are equipped with state-of-the-art equipment in their patrol vehicles. It doesn't take them back to the troop that much. Now, administratively, we are assigned to Troop 2. We're still out in the community meeting with and engaged with our legislative partners at community meetings. We try to give updates on crime impacting our area at those meetings. We are slated, the prison that was originally located, the old Web Center, was at that Price's Corner in Albertson and Greenbank. That has been demolished and it's down. The old courthouse back there has been demolished and it's down. The troop is still standing. Probably as we move into August, that's going to be knocked down and level. Then we're going to move into the excavation phase, which should be completed around September, October. We'll see foundations being poured in the beginning, hopefully December or January, depending on weather, trying to get it before it really hits the cold because the moisture impacts those foundations, with the ultimate goal of being moved back in March of 25. Does seem like a long way away, but when you really break down the months, 2025 seems long. We're almost through 2023. So our goal is to get in there fast. We really want to get in there by November of 24 because Colonel Zebley had really had a drive to get this troop updated and replaced. And that goal was for November 24. I don't know if we'll meet that benchmark, but what we will have when it's completed is a 100-person community room to welcome community associations like this, Little League, Boy Scouts, homeowners associations, right there at that Price's Corner area. We've been a staple on Kirkwood Highway since 1970, and it was really important to the state police to continue with that landmark of the state police barracks right on the highway. We're in our 100th year of serving the citizens and visitors of Delaware. We're almost through our 100th anniversary. We have one more public-facing event in September 23rd down at the beach. It's a 5K walk run. If you have any interest in that, Races to Run is the website that we're pushing folks to and doing all the registering. And it's a walk run from Dewey Beach out to Rehoboth and back. way to celebrate the community with us as a state police, our 100 years serving you all. And we look forward to the next 100 years, and like I said, we appreciate your time. It's going to be exactly at the same spot that we served. That's why we've temporarily, this is unprecedented for the state police. Most of my career was in Dover, which we went to a building down in Troop 3, where we lived during the construction phase. We pretty much flipped the switch. One day we were reporting to the old Troop 3, next day we were at the new Troop 3. This was a little bit different because, like I said, it was important for the state police to stay on that figure of the Kirkwood Highway. And so we had to vacate the building for construction, get it knocked down and rebuilt, and go back to the exact same location. Our number's 302-633-5000. It's still use that same number if you need to call for non-emergency. Anything that's emergency, 911 or 573-2800, because the county police support the state police with call takers, and they divert the calls for us. So, yeah.
I have a question. Can you send the campaign information to us so that we can
Yes.
circulate?
Unfortunately, for the summer of '23, the camp is full, but we push out information around March-ish for applications, but I'll give you that information on the website to push out to your communities. Yeah, well, I'll forward it.
That's my question. Like, do you have any requirements for who can be in the academy?
The police, well, this is a camp. The police academy is 21 years old by the time you graduate, and you have to have at least 60 credits if you want to be a full-time police officer, and that's pretty much consistent with Newcastle County as well. But I was talking about the youth camp. It's really good that we.
What are the ages?
So it's right at 8 to 11, I believe, or 10 to 13. 10 to 13. But then also there's leadership opportunities after that. If your camper really enjoys that experience, as they grow and get a little bit older, a little bit more mature, we do bring down high schoolers to be camp counselors for campus, for cabin-specific assignments. Whereas there's a trooper there all the time, there's a full-time nurse there, so it's a very safe, friendly environment that you can trust the state police to care for the kids.
Beautiful property.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's right on the water. It's really a pretty property that it's in its 75th anniversary, and they're celebrating 75 years this year as well. And Colonel Herbert Barnes was the one who had the vision for the cabin, so that's why it's called Camp Barnes.
Thank you.
So we want to thank you guys on behalf of the panel, the elected officials, our law enforcement community. We want to thank you guys for coming out. We can't get this done without you, and your input is absolutely valuable, and we take that in. There's going to be a few of us that'll stay after just for a few minutes to answer any specific questions. Again, we can't talk about specific cases, but if there's some tips and tricks that you want to know about, you have questions about, there'll be a few of us that can stay for a short period of time to answer those things, okay? But thank you guys.